Most of the undergraduate students at UC San Diego and other American universities know what is expected of them, and they, in turn, have expectations of their own. If they study hard and finish the tough college curriculum, they can graduate and go on to pursue additional degrees or go to work. But for some students, the so-called undocumented students, their options are limited. Because of their immigration status, they cannot legally get a job, and going to graduate school is out of the question because they cannot qualify for financial aid. So once they graduate, they are stuck. Gracia Lima, a junior at UC San Diego who emigrated from Mexico when she was 13, is leading the campus effort to change that by organizing events like this one in support of the DREAM Act, legislation now before Congress that would provide a path to legal residency for immigrant students.
Hello everyone, thank you very much for coming. This event is talking about undocumented immigrants, and more specifically, undocumented students. What that means is students who enter the country illegally or unauthorized immigrants are now wanting to go to schools of higher education. That means UCSD, that means UCLA, that means schools such as Brown University, Harvard, and they're not able to do it because they lack this 9-digit number, and they're not able to gain financial aid, they're not able to apply for jobs, they're not able to do many things that I think every day we take for granted. I wanted to link it back to Cesar Chavez's ideas because I feel that it's so important to have this person looking back at us and saying, we approve this, and we know that you're making social change. Cesar Chavez believed on helping the needy. The undocumented immigrants are the most needed community. They're the most invisible community. It's a community that lives in fear. It's a community that lives in silence. I wanted to link it back to Cesar Chavez because it reminds us that his spirit's still with us. I want to thank you all very much for coming. And I just want you to remember that Cesar Chavez still lives in us. That Cesar Chavez still in the undocumented immigrant community. That he hasn't forgotten about us. That he's still here. That this that we see here, this is bringing social change. And once social change has started, it can never go back. You cannot uneducate it. You cannot uneducate the people who have been educated. And that's something that Cesar Chavez believed. And that's something that Cesar Chavez said. And I carry it with me all the time because I know that once social change starts, you cannot take it back. Thank you very much. We're going to start with testimonials of students whose lives have been influenced by being an undocumented immigrant. So I want to call to the podium Veronica. Thank you.
Thank you. Since my earliest years, I've had present in my mind the saying, que el que persevera alcanza, or who is persistent will reach their goals. This saying has been my motivation to succeed. An immigrant's life isn't easy. I'm a strong, independent, undocumented young Latina, in part to the many obstacles that stand in front of me.
This student reads the story of another who did not want to publicly acknowledge her legal status. And this student could not attend the event, but shared his experience by video.
It was about a year and a half when I came to this country. My father came to this country first, and I believe that I was given a fake birth certificate to cross the border. At that time, it wasn't as hard as it was now, so I made it that way. I've been in this country since then, live in Los Angeles.
What have been some of the obstacles that you have had to face being an undocumented immigrant and being an undocumented student? How did it affect your education?
Through high school, I always had good grades. I never had a problem with school. But then when I applied for a job at this retirement home, I realized that I couldn't work because I didn't have my papers. I've always known that I was undocumented in a way, but I've always thought that my parents would take care of that situation. But due to the financial situation that we had, I never took care of any of that, and it was difficult. I had to work under the table. I had to get many jobs where they would pay me cash. I worked construction. Anything would pay me cash to survive. It was really tough. I mean, you know, I know full English. I graduated with a good grades in high school, and I believe that I feel like I'm, you know, a U.S. citizen. I know that I am, but due to this paper, I wasn't able to work and to prove it to anyone else. It was really tough. It's been very difficult since I'm the oldest of 8, so I had this duty of being good in school. When the transition between high school and college was really tough because I wasn't granted financial aid because I wasn't eligible. I remember how much I lost. It was about $100,000. It was a lot of money they were going to give to me through scholarships, through the idea of me having good grades. I wrote a really good essay. Everything was great. Everything was going okay until I found out I wasn't eligible, and that really took a toll on me. My first year of college was difficult. I didn't have any money. I was working under the table once again. I wasn't doing really good in school, and I blame all this on this financial situation, you know, just for being undocumented.
I know that you are a parent too, besides being a non-documented student, besides being human being, basically, you know, you are also a parent. Was it double difficult for you?
Well, being a student is hard in itself. Here at UCSD, I'm sure all of you guys know about the suicidal rates around in the school. Just being a student, the pressure. Being a parent and a student and a worker is 3 times as hard. I mean, I don't know how I did it. I have a 2-year-old daughter that, you know, she's beautiful. I love her with all my heart, but it was tough. It was tough my first year, and it's still tough to this day because I have to keep up with my family and keep up with school, and it's worth it in the end. It's all part of my life, but it's difficult, and that's nothing that I can prevent. But I learned from it. I learned to have lots of patience. I learned about myself, and I learned it makes me stronger. It makes me stronger. It's hard, so I can learn from it every single day. Every single day I wake up, and it's a new lesson for me.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you, why is the DREAM Act and comprehensive immigration reform in general important to you?
It's important because the students that want to go to the UCSD, want to go to these Cal States, they're good students, they're smart, you know, and the only thing that's stopping them is this thing that says, oh, I'm sorry, you're not eligible because you're illegal. But everything else says, yes, there's all these green lights. You have good grades, you're a great student. But no, there's this little red light that says, I'm sorry, you're not eligible. So it's going to be a good thing if it passes. There's nothing wrong about it at all. It's going to benefit the country. It's going to benefit everyone else in the end. So it's very important for me and very important for everyone else.
That student was Jorge Narvaez, and he is now a resident, but he believes so much in the DREAM Act, and he believes so much in undocumented students in general, just because he himself was undocumented, and he knows the struggle, and he knows the shame and the silence. He understands, and actually when I interviewed him, I told him, why is it still important to you? Why is it still important to you to fight for this? And he said, because I know it's a scar, and because many of my friends are still undocumented. And that goes to show in so many levels that undocumented students do not only care about themselves. It's not only me. It's not give me residency, give me education. It's Give me the opportunity to go back to my communities and make change. Give me the opportunity to work for this nation. Give me the opportunity to show other students, to show people the qualities that I have. It's not give me money, give me education. It's give me the opportunity. Let me have change. Let me create change. I am also an undocumented student, but I'm also an activist, and I'm also a woman, and I'm also a sister and a daughter. I feel very honored to be in front of you all because many students wish to be here. And some of the students are not here with us, not because they're selfish, and not because they have better stuff to do, but because they work full-time jobs, because they have a family to take care of. I feel so honored and so privileged to be here in front of you all and telling you my story, because I have the privilege of being here. There's many students that are silenced all through high school, all through elementary, all through middle school, and I don't want to be silenced anymore. And that's the reason why I'm standing here today, shaking till death, but I'm sharing my story. I am the oldest of 4. I have another sister who's in high school and a little sister who's 5, which I adore, and my little brother who's 3. Coming to UCSD hasn't quite an experience. My first year, as Jorge mentioned, was the most horrible year I think I have ever experienced in my life. It was adjusting to the change of being a college student, but also adjusting to paying outrageous amounts of money. My mother had to go back to the workforce, and I consider myself very responsible for that. I know she went back to work because she had to pay for my tuition. I know I'm not working because she made the efforts. I know that I'm standing here today in the UCSD institution because all the community that supported me. I earned scholarships and I earned private grants, but it was because it was a community support, and I understand that very clearly. I have it in my mind all the time. I know that I got here not because I was the most amazing student ever, which maybe I was, but I got here because it was a community support. I know that fighting for rights for undocumented students might be difficult for you all to connect to, because it's something really abstract and something that I don't think you can see it unless you live it, but I think it creates social change. Imagine all these wonderful students were to come to UCSD and they were to share all the qualities that they have. Where are all the students at UCSD? There's 135 students in the whole UC system. That means that we're not doing enough. That means that we're not doing enough to outreach to them, and that means that we're not doing enough to support them. Being an undocumented student, you live in this line between privilege and marginalization, because you come to a school that is filled with buildings that look like from the movies, and it's filled with professors who are Nobel Prize winners, but then you go back to your communities and you see that there's not change anymore, that it's still the same. And I feel like I'm so privileged to be a UCSD student, but at the same time, I don't have enough resources to make all the changes I want to make. I was recently denied by the McNair Scholars because I was an undocumented student. And I just want to tell them, let me share my qualities with you. Let me share who I am. I want to do research. I want to be a PhD doctorate in anthropology, but I can't. What am I going to do after graduation? Where am I going to go? Why does this country do not want me here? I don't understand. To end, I really want to share with you kind of this philosophy that I have, and that is, activism is privilege. And I want you all to thank you for being here, because it shows that you are an active community and that you care of something besides your own story or your own problems. But I want you to remind you that you had the privilege to be here, that you had the privilege to come and say, I'm going to take an hour and a half to come and sit and hear some girl talk about the stories that she has to share. You had the privilege to be here. Make that privilege count.
The next to present was Gladys Negrete, a graduate student specializing in immigration law.
Well, the demographics. As of 2002, according to the census, there's 7.5 to 9.5 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S. The number of children who have resided in the U.S. for 5 years and are reaching the age of 18 are at about 80,000, and out of those, 65,000 graduate from high school every year. That means those are the potential students that would be beneficiaries of the DREAM Act. In 1982, the Plyer versus Doe case guaranteed public education in K through 12 to all children regardless of immigration status. And in 1986, the Leticia A. versus the UC Regents case, this case was significant because it made undocumented students eligible for in-state tuition and federal financial aid. And then in 1991, the Bradford versus UC Regents overruled that case. And in 1996, the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act actually reversed all of this and prohibited immigrant students from accessing any post-secondary education benefits unless they offered it to other U.S. citizens or nationals as well. So this 1996 case really changed a lot and is kind of what led to AB 540. So in 2001, in the state of California, under Governor Gray Davis, they passed Assembly Bill AB 540, which allowed students who attended a California high school and graduated from a California high school to be exempt from paying the out-of-state tuition. Because of the undocumented status, for the purposes of tuition, they don't count as in-state residents, even though they've been living here since they were 5 or 4 or whenever they came into the country. However, the original bill included Cal Grants and assumption program of loans for education, but the bill that got passed didn't. So as you can see, there's a big difference ranging from the Cal States to the community colleges and to the UCs. It's a big difference, and as a undocumented student, the fact that you can't work, this really impacts you heavily. And since 2001, since California was one of the, pioneering states to pass this law. After they passed it, other states started following suit. AB 540 does offer in-state tuition, but it doesn't offer, like I said, residency, and it also doesn't offer financial aid. What happens? It's a catch-22 situation. You can't work while you're in school. You can't work when you're out of school. What happens after graduation? So that's why the DREAM Act is very important. So what would the DREAM Act do? So It would do two major changes. It would allow you to apply for temporary legal status and eventually obtain permanent status and become eligible for citizenship if they go to college or serve in the U.S. military, either for 2 years for either or. And it would eliminate the provision in the 1996 Act that would penalize states for offering in-state tuition without regard to immigration status. So the requirements are that students living in the U.S. for 5 years or more that came into the country at the age of 15 or younger. Students must have graduated from high school. They must be able to demonstrate good moral character, in other words, no criminal records. And they must attend a minimum of 2 years, like I said, of either college or military service. So it's an either or. So then after, if they meet these requirements, they meet for conditional permanent residency, which means that it's a period of 6 years. They would be able to work, they would be able to get driver's license. However, like any other person who's in a permanent residency status, or as in this case, conditional permanent residency, you can't really travel abroad as much. There's certain laws when you apply for citizenship that you can't really leave the country for a certain number of months. And they would be eligible for work study, but right now you wouldn't be eligible for Pell Grants. You might be eligible for Cal Grants. It would leave it up to the states, to the UCs, for them to decide. After those 6 years, then you qualify for permanent residency status, and at that point, once you have your permanent residency status, you can apply for financial aid. And so
The DREAM Act is now part of the comprehensive immigration reform package being considered by the United States Senate. Good news for these activists, though they do see problems with the bill in its current form.
The DREAM Act is not perfect, and that the help that is put forth, will be put forth, if at all, by AB 540, which is really eligibility for temporary residence, and it does not ensure the financial aid. That has to come through another struggle that we have to wait. But it's not only limited to students. So all of the people, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, who are willing to have this temporary residence are going to apply. And only those few who are eligible for college are going to be able to enjoy that. The rest will be recruited into the armed forces and will be sent to any war this country is weighing. So in search for residence and in search for help, they might lose their life. That is all I want to say. Do not get me wrong. I support the students with I will support with every drop of energy I have. I just want to be aware what is behind and who are the ones who are going to be unable to come to the doors of these colleges and have to serve in the armed forces as soon as they become temporary permanent residents. Thank you.
Hi, I wanted to make a comment in regards to the issue of the military provision in the DREAM Act, and I think that it's not perfect as she said and as Grecia has said, but I think that right now that's what we have, and I think it's up to us as a community, as a community to be active in that sense. And yeah, there's going to be students that are going to probably be vulnerable and they're going to be led into the military, but that's where it's up to us to try to outreach to students and try to tell them that that's an option, that they don't have to do it, and try to push education and to push that, and instead of going to the military, because that's like the only option. And so I think that at that point, I think it's up to us to outreach and to go out to students and to let them know that they have options. And so I think that part is crucial. So that's just something for everybody to keep in mind when they're out there in their communities and, you know, in their hometowns at the high schools, and try to just spread the word, you know.
So I think you heard most of the facts. So if you're interested in helping out, which I hope you are, what can you do in order for this to be a reality?
Gracia and freshman Lily Chang listed the ways for this audience to support their cause, beginning with a call to Washington.
Take out your cell phones And let's call congressmen and congresswomen and let them know what we think about the Dream Active. There's a suggested message in the handout, so you can use that one or you can create your personal message. And we will be calling too.
I urge your office to co-sponsor the DREAM Act legislation introduced in
Co-sponsor the DREAM Act legislation that was introduced in February of 2007.
Okay, I just want to officially close this so you could go grab more food and take it home. And also to thank you very much for coming and thank you very much for calling. But I also want to remind you of something else. We as undocumented students in institutions like UCSD are the students who work the most. We are truly overachievers, and I'm not trying to give praise to myself, not at all. I think, like I said, I owe my stay here at UCSD to many people, but I do want to recognize the struggle of many students, and those are students who were extreme overachievers in high school, but there's many more that were left behind. And I want us to remember those too. The dropout high school rate for undocumented immigrants is very, very high. We just want to have the chance, we that made it, want to have the chance to go back to our communities to make change happen. We're not forgetting about them. And I believe that the DREAM Act has things that might be controversial, but I also believe that a structure in society is needed. That a structure in our society is needed. Imagine when women were allowed to come to colleges. That was an important step, and it changed the structures of society, and it may change. I know that the DREAM Act is not perfect because I myself am a big critic of it. But I also want to mention that there's people left behind and we're not forgetting about them.